when everything went black. That was the day I severed trust with my body. In the years that followed, I started having panic attacks. While doctors said my seizure was caused by severe undernourishment combined with sketchy weed, I was sure that it was simply my body betraying me, and if it had done so once, it was likely to do so again. In my late 20s, I was living in London with my then boyfriend and now husband and regular podcast fixture, Zach. Isolated from my community, devoid of the coping structures I'd built into my life, my anxiety spiraled. I started having panic attacks on the tube, the already close walls of the Piccadilly line squeezing in around me as my vision tunneled. I abandoned my cart at a grocery store after the line I was waiting in made me feel trapped, and the white walls and snack-stocked aisles began to tilt on their axes. I started making up excuses not to go out with Zach and our friends. My world became the size of my house, and then my room, and then my bed, where I would lie for the entirety of the day, afraid of the panic attack I'd have if I left it. I still remember the feeling of being horizontal under the comforter with my computer propped on its side, and thinking, I guess this is my life now. At least I have the internet. I can stream movies. I can send emails. There I was, the existentially ambitious child, the person who was so intent on seizing every single moment, and I couldn't even get out of bed. I wasn't living my best life. I wasn't living any sort of life. A layer of depression descended on top of my anxiety. Where had I gone so wrong? I did, however, have one critical asset: years of professional experience in finding answers. I'd been working as a journalist for over a decade by then. I had started working for the local paper when I was 16 after I secured an interview with Hootie and the Blowfish, who were playing in my small Central Valley town in California. Shortly thereafter, I pitched a column and began writing about my experience of the world on a weekly basis. My first job out of college was running an editorial team at a startup, which later evolved into writing for publications like Goop, Marie Claire, and Glamour, and, much later, into serving as the food director for leading wellness media company Mindbody Green. I'd internalized the notion that if I had questions, there were experts out there who'd spent their lives researching the exact explanations I sought. I began emailing people I likely had no right to contact, putting into practice one of my core mantras, never be the one to say no to yourself, which we'll talk about later. I wrote to a Stanford neuroscientist and asked what was going on in my brain during panic attacks, and how, from a neurochemical perspective, an anxious brain differed from a calm brain. From my horizontal position, propped up on pillows with my cat curled up against me, I sent notes that crossed the thousands of miles I no longer could. I emailed registered dietitians, hormone specialists, psychiatrists, and psychologists. I dove into published research and messaged study authors with my questions. Not all of them wrote back, of course, but some of them did. And slowly, I got a sense of why I was feeling the way I was feeling, and advice on some different pathways that might help me feel different. Because I was still daunted by the prospect of doing, well, almost anything, I decided to start with one simple change, something that felt achievable and that didn't require leaving my house. I committed to making a green smoothie every morning. It combined many of the food recommendations I'd gathered from the registered dietitians I'd spoken to, while also incorporating the advice I'd received from a psychologist to add some type of structure or routine to my day. Zach picked up the ingredients for me. I still wasn't ready to go to the grocery store. And the next day, I climbed out of the safety of my bed and padded downstairs. Heart pounding, I loaded the ingredients into the blender and turned it on. And I was healed. Just kidding. My life didn't change so dramatically that day, but it did change. I made another smoothie the next day and the next, and so on. Before long, it became a habit. Soon I found myself looking forward to getting out of bed in the morning. I started to drink my smoothie at the kitchen table instead of taking it back to my room. Once I was up and wandering around the house, I'd think, I wonder if there's anything else I could do that might help me even more. I added 5 minutes of meditation and, after that, a daily reading from a book that inspired me. In time, with sweaty palms, I could even take a walk around the block. And now, years later, I'm writing this book on a plane as I travel by myself from one country to another. Since my bout with agoraphobia, I've had high-powered magazine editor jobs in New York City. I've married the man of my dreams. I've ended my apartment lease to nomadically traverse the most beautiful places in the country. I've whitewater rafted and summited 14,000-foot mountains. I've published 2 successful books, and I'm lucky enough.